everybody, and we are back after, 5 months? So welcome to Wildstorm Addiction, episode 59 for February of 2023. Does that year make you feel old yet, Ben? I know we talked about being old in the last episode. It's probably going to be our subject.
Everything makes me feel old.
But
you didn't introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. I'm Joe.
I'm Ben Murphy.
Yes. I figured they know by now after 59 episodes, Of course, I know everybody's, this could be somebody's first episode. So we've actually had a pretty good spike in subscribers at the YouTube channel, and that's where this will end up. So we appreciate everybody starting to follow. And as far as reviewing what's happened since last time, there's not too much news per se, other than nothing's gotten canceled, which is the best news.
That's what I was going to say. Are you kidding me? They actually followed through and released things in November when they said they were going to.
Yeah,
all except for one thing, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, but yeah, no, there's not too much dramatic in my life that's happened in the last 5 months. Still dealing with a 2-year-old. I know you have 3 of varying ages that you're dealing with, so I'm a rookie compared to you.
That's okay, man. It's life.
But yeah, we're going to get in here into the reviews for the books that have released so far, and just kind of talk about the overall feelings from the original diehard Wildstorm fans on this quote-unquote reboot, as DC rewound to the 90s. I guess at this point it's already past tense now.
Yeah, so what we're going to be talking through is DC did a promo that was Rewind to the 90s, and it launched in November. And this was kind of a label-wide thing across DC, and they had special covers for a lot of different characters and titles. But Wildstorm was definitely one that was promoted and highlighted. So we're going to go over those issues since they released in November up till now, which covers the January releases. And also included in the Rewind to the 90s was a title called Waller versus Wildstorm. That was the only one that was delayed. And we'll have more info on that later on in the episode. So, Joe, why don't you kick us off with the first couple of releases that happened?
Yes, so we had both Wildcats number 1 and 2 release. Wildcats number 1 came out back in November of 8th, and then they stayed on a pretty good schedule, almost a little less than a month later. Number 2 came out on December 6th. They're both written by Matthew Rosenberg with art and cover by Steven Segovia. And that first one has all the variant covers. We have one by Jim Lee, Stanley Art Germ Lau, Ben Oliver, Jeff Spokes, Alan Pois, Dan Hip, Brett Booth, and Sandra Hope. So I only got the regular cover. But Ben, on the other hand, blew it out of the water. And I think you got every single one, right? Including the expensive one. Yes. Showcase them for all you older folks. Showcase them, Benna. All you old Wheel of Fortune fans. Oh, yes, that one. Oh, no, I take that back. I did get some of those, but I ended up just turning right around and selling them. I only kept the original, I think. Not even that.
Thanks to our friends at mycomicshop.com.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these were ridiculously overpriced at the time. The only one missing here is the sketch 1 in 150.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask. I thought you got that one.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think the going rate right now is like $80 to $100.
Yeah, I was about to say you didn't want to explain that $80 charge to wife.
Yeah. Here's issue number 2. Missing a couple of these, but just kind of waiting.
When I saw that Spawn cover, I thought it was I thought it was fake / could have been fan art. I didn't think it was real. Like, I couldn't believe that they actually got that in there, but it makes sense. McFarlane is doing the toys for DC, and somebody asked the right question and said, sure, put Spawn on the cover, even though he's not in the issue. When I posted the solicit for that, I had to be specific because I didn't want people to go crazy thinking that that was the case. Although that would have been cool, but stuff like that can't happen nowadays. The days of those kind of crossovers are over. But so Wildcats #1, as we talked about last time, Matthew Rosenberg is definitely a fan. In his interview for this writing position, one of the things he brought up was that he was a Wildstorm fan. So I was definitely looking forward to see what he was going to do with this title. And we mentioned about, well, what do fans think? I would say, based on, obviously I got to interact with people at the Wildstorm Universe Facebook group. People, I run the 2 pages. I don't know if we ever talk about it, but I run the Facebook page for Grifter just by himself, and then another one for Wildcats. So between there and then Twitter, we do have an Instagram now, by the way. I added an Instagram. It's just at Wildstorm Addiction. The only difference about that one is it kind of turned into a history of, because I started with Wildcats #1, did the variant cover, the gold cover, and first appearances and whatnot. So that one, people go there so far, I've noticed, to reminisce. Like, they're like, oh, I remember that. So that's kind of more the vibe over there. So if you're looking to just be nostalgic, go follow our Instagram. If you want to argue, follow on Facebook or Twitter, especially Twitter. Oh my God. I don't want to get into the arguments that started about that Dan Hip cover that you showed on #1. But Rosenberg starts off here, and he's definitely a Wildstorm fan. He starts off with the classic telling of the conflict between the Caravan and the Damonites. Visually it's different. Obviously, the one shot we get of a Damonite is definitely different, but the idea is still there. And he basically just takes us from there to modern day, where the Wildcats are trying to capture a scientist for the needs of Halo. And Ben, before I get into this next part, what do you think was the #1 complaint of this issue overall that you think? And I'll just give the one hint that it was something that was cosmetic, something visual.
Wow. I honestly, I would probably butcher it because
it's Grifter's hair.
Yeah.
More than the other complaint that I heard, it was Grifter's hair. That why did they give him the little shaved haircut thing?
Oh, he can grow it in.
Well, yeah, obviously. Most people treated it like it was permanent. So I just thought it was funny that was the #1 thing I heard, and I get it. And spoiler alert, they pretty much fix it by issue 3, so it's okay. Just like I knew it was going to be okay, but some people declared they were never going to read this again because of that. And and then the other thing I didn't hear as much, but was Zealot's design. I thought it was cool. I mean, it's kind of like got like almost like a samurai style to her armor now. And so but that one I didn't hear as much. But other than that, he still kind of treats Grifter a little bit like the wisecracker, and they actually fail in their mission to get the scientist. And I love how he still, because obviously Rosenberg did the whole urban legend storyline where he kind of set all this up. So he wrote the Bat family very heavily over there. And we still get to see cameos here, of Batgirl and Nightwing showing up too late to this job the Wildcats were pulling. So I liked the little nods like that to remind us that they were tied to the Batman title. Another complaint I heard is that Lord Empire is too much like Perry from Spider-Man, yelling all the time. And I was like, yeah, he did seem a lot more angered to me for whatever reason. Just couldn't take anything.
That doesn't seem to go away. We're 3 episodes in, or 3 issues in. He's still
Yeah.
pretty feisty.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to calm down. I feel like in the old WildCat 3.0, there probably was some sort of product they were selling that he could have taken and chilled out. So, uh, but there is some cool visual stuff to look for here. Like after reading it the second time, I noticed that when they're walking through the Halo building, you see all the Spartans basically in the background. I didn't really notice that the first time. So, they kind of keep that going. We have Deathblow as part of the team now, and apparently his is kind of like a mixture, as we find out later, of Spartan, I guess, to where he can die but be downloaded into a new body. That was it was okay. It was just kind of weird. But the one thing I will say that each time we've seen a different iteration of Void, for as much as they've changed her, I've been okay with it each time. I don't know why. Obviously I love the classic Void, the silver, but even in that miniseries, the Wildstorm, where they kind of gave her she was from Russia and they gave her kind of like the cosmonaut look. I was like, I liked that. And then here, she's got the weird, basically, I don't know if it's a full skeleton in a spacesuit or what it is, but I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. It's kind of creepy, it's kind of mysterious. So I was okay with that. Lady Tron's basically exactly the same. It's like she stepped out of the Wildstorm universe into the DC universe. Her personality is the same, and then after that, Grifter basically goes to try to nab another scientist, gets in a bar fight. He's seeing visions of his dead brother. And then we go on this crazy mission where they take who I've just come to call Tiny Fairchild with them. But it's not the same Fairchild from anywhere, like in any iteration before that I remember. I thought it was interesting. And this is not the only character in this book that's going to have, as we'll find out later, they're a child and then they turn into something aspect to them, which makes it really interesting that we did 2 characters like that. At least with Fairchild, I guess, kind of goes with her a little bit, but the other characters we'll see later in issue 3 was more of a scratch your head moment of why would you do that to him. But Fairchild, my only complaint here was she wasn't in her original colors, but again, they fixed that by issue 3. So I don't think these issues are being made now. So it's almost like somebody saw that and was like, oh, you need to fix that before people complain. And sure enough, they fixed Grifter's hair. They fixed Fairchild's costume. She essentially does the similar things. She grows large. She's invulnerable. But apparently in this form, she can't hold it for very long, which was interesting. I understand giving characters limitations like that for the sake of storytelling, but that was kind of weird. Like, and it doesn't come up again in the next couple of issues, maybe even weirder. So that's issue 1. They end by falling literally in the middle of a meeting of the Court of Owls. So I'll give you a chance to talk about issue 1 before I talk about issue 2.
I don't have much to say. You can roll right into it.
Yes, but see, that should lead people to want to know why you don't have that much to say.
I think I'll get to that one once we wrap up number 3.
Number 3. Oh, okay. So he wants to do all 3 before he gets it. So in number 2, it's just, they're still in the middle of the Court of Owls meeting. They're still being pursued. And they essentially caused their pursuit. I don't remember who their pursuers are, but they caused the Court of Owls to engage with them. And so that way they can make their escape. And basically once they're teleported out of there, then Grifter is like recovering from his injuries, still seeing visions of his dead brother. And then Lady Tron comes to get him, to bring him to a meeting of the minds at Halo. And this one, when I did the video, I think it was a CBR, Comic Book Resources article that I had to go look at to figure out like who all these people were. I thought this panel could have benefited from just the classic, you have them all at the table, You just put their names on top of everybody's head. Simple classic comic thing, right? And I mean, there's people here that we saw from urban legends like Nora Freeze, and based on the eye makeup, we figure out real quick that female is Deathblow. So Deathblow's been downloaded into a female body. And then through the conversation, we realized that that's Jeremy Stone, aka Maul. So that was cool that he ended up here after that very weird appearance in Flash. I don't should have made a note of what Flash number that was. But well, you know what? We have a handy dandy checklist at our site that I do have it listed there. So Maul made a random appearance in the Flash comic before this one. So, but then there's others on here that I don't know. I know they mentioned some of their names here in the conversation, but I'm here because there's Wildstorm characters. I'm not here because there's DC characters. And that was another thing I was curious about. Is like, are they mixed on purpose? Like, was that mandated that you had to put some of these other characters in there? I mean, some of them I don't mind. I think I had never seen that Nora Freeze, this had happened to her until I read Batman Urban Legends. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've missed a lot because the classic Nora Freeze was always just stuck in a tube trying to stay alive, right? So she was, to me, out of the characters that they brought in, she was the coolest, no pun intended, because she's got a really cool visual look, and she apparently took her husband's freeze gun. So, but there's a debate here about going after the Court of Owls. Void shows up and essentially tells Grifter, no, we're not going after the Court of Owls, which I find it interesting. I love the idea of the Court of Owls. I followed them when they first were introducing New 52. It's an awesome modern idea for the Batman universe. And so for Void, who's this, like, I think somebody called her like a space dem god or something. If she's worried about the Court of Owls, then to me that shows their threat level, And then we get a nice little insert here. This was one of those moments where I was like, this kind of feels like the old Wildcats a little bit, when Voodoo and Grifter were kind of sneaking around, and what we find out later is kind of setting up stuff for issue 3. I was like, that was nice. It was nice just kind of seeing them together again, and like that's all we want the book to be, right? We wish we could just have all the other old characters, and I'd keep Nora Freeze, but I don't need everybody else at that table, So if you want to add some new characters to the Wildcats, Jacob Marlowe, somebody tries to assassinate him. Spartan stops him, and then Zella gets a pretty awesome fight. Of course, he takes out the would-be assassins, and then at the end, Fairchild was wearing green and purple sneakers, so maybe her other costume was dirty that day. But after that, we get to a very interesting story point here, where Jacob Marlowe has decided that in order to keep the Wildcats covert, which apparently that's not even part of their name, we can get into that later too, but to keep them secret from the public, he's going to introduce this new team, which is called the Seven Soldiers of Victory, which I looked it up. Again, it's an old DC thing. So I question, I'm like, is this a copyright thing? Do we have to use this year? Kind of like in the New 52, where we used Black Hawks and Frankenstein, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this old obscure stuff. Like, do we have to use this so we don't lose copyright? Like, why? And then the assortment of Wildstorm characters that we do get as part of this team, the way I described it in the video was, it almost seemed like if there was a shelf of Wildstorm action figures, and they were just like this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. It's just like, okay, why? Why are these people together? Okay, so I made it to the end of issue 2, Ben. So your turn.
No, fair enough. I have a lot of those same feelings on how, or curiosities on how certain DC characters were plucked out and just used, and certain Wildstorm characters were just plucked out. Like Mother One randomly shows up, and Pike, and just a bunch of random characters. And I don't have much to add to issue number 2 either. Like, honestly, I'll just roll into the next 2 and I'll explain why I'm cautiously concerned. So Wildstorm 30th anniversary special was a one-shot. It released on November 29th, and it was written by Matthew Rosenberg and Joshua Williamson, Brandon Chow, and Scott Campbell. Everybody. Brett Booth was in it. This was the variety issue, basically. It's really, 96 pages. Actually, while I'm introducing this, because Jim Lee had a hand in the covers and there was a million variant covers, I'm also going to just cover DC's Grifter Got Run Over by a Reindeer #1, which was also a one-shot. And it came out on the same exact day, so November 29th. And it was another big 80-page one-shot. And it was also just a variety show. Both of these issues came out, and here, I'll show you really quick. So this was Grifter Got Run Over by a Reindeer, and nice and thick. Very prominent Grifter on the front. It takes until the very last little vignette story to finally realize that Grifter is in this, because I was like starting to wonder, like, did they really just use him for the cover? Was that it? But he was in there. But it really, I don't know, it just felt weird and disingenuous. So the 30th anniversary, there's all these covers. It's ridiculous how many covers came out for this. Beautiful covers. I'm really glad they spent the time on these and let a lot of creators that are fans. This is a glow in the dark one. The only one I didn't get is the foil one, because that one is also ridiculously expensive and hard to get. But between these 2 issues, really just a variety show of stories. And I felt like it was just a means to introduce a lot of DC characters. Like, even the Wildstorm 30th anniversary had a ton of DC characters in there. These little storylines teed up other DC titles that don't seem to be related with any of the Wildstorm characters much. And the Grifter Got Run Over by a Reindeer issue was totally 95% all DC characters, and then they threw Grifter in. And I know he's a DC character, but for a Wildstorm, old Wildstorm fans, they wouldn't see it that way. And it was just a little frustrating. And I feel the same about the Wildcats issues. Every time I get one, I'm excited to read it, but my eye gets drawn to the little corner on the cover that says limited series. And they haven't said how many issues. And I'm like, I just feel like they're going to kill it at any moment. Like, it's just full of DC characters, and they're just plucking and pulling, hoping that they're getting other readers that may be fans of those characters. I'm not sure. So I'm not saying that I'm not enjoying it. I'm really happy that they are restarting a lot of Wildstorm stuff, and I hope it continues. I'm not sold yet, and I'm just kind of like hedging my bets because I don't want it to go away, but I'm also just curious on where it's going. We're very new to it. We're only 3 issues in. So, I mean, by all means, lead the way on introducing number 3.
Oh, well, you got to let me talk about the Wildstorm 30th, though, before we do that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
It's funny because that was the one that I feel like I saw the most people say they liked it, the Wildstorm 30th. But some people did realize that it's essentially half. If you picked up the Wildstorm 25th anniversary hardcover back in 2017, the first half of this book is that, minus all the extras. And then the second half of the Wildstorm 30th is, like you said, it's all the new setup stuff. So for me, like, it was kind of bittersweet because it almost was like the 25th anniversary was truly Like if you guys didn't pick that up when it came out in 2017, go get it. It's available. It's out there still. Unlike the Absolute Wildcats, which is sold out. but uh, but that they both came out in 2017. Um, that one truly felt like a celebration of Wildstorm. The 25th one did, because you had a Death Blow story by Jim Lee. Jim Lee, like, you know how hard it is to get Jim Lee to do anything that's not just a cover, and on top of that, not just a cover where they're standing around like the one you just showed. you know, because the Wildstorm 30th anniversary cover was actually really good. Now I don't know if he was already planning for it when he did it, because I saw him do it during the pandemic on his like all his social medias. He made that cover, and that's a really good cover. It's not anything dramatic. It's just Grifter and Zealot in hiding from a Daemonite in this like war-torn area. But it looks more like something Jim Lee would have done back in the day, as compared to the one you showed for Wildcats #1, where they literally, I'm sorry, I call them the standing around covers, because that's all that they're doing. They're just standing there. And then it adds insult to injury, because I follow Jim Lee, and he'll do like a cover for Batman, and it's an awesome variant. There's one he just did of Batman versus Clayface, and it's like amazing. Like, it's an amazing action shot. And I'm like, why couldn't we get that for Wildcats #1, But yeah, so in the 25th, you got that one. It was the Death Blow story. You had J. Scott Campbell come back and do a Gen 13 story. You had Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch come back to do The Authority. And I realize why Warren Ellis is not allowed back right now. We'll get into that. You even had a really nice cap to Wildcats 3.0. Christos Gage wrote it. Dustin Wynn drew it. And it was a nice little nod to the fans. It's funny because in that one, like, Spartan literally looks at the camera and is like, thanks for being here and thanks for staying on, or I don't know how he said it, but it basically, oh no, things are about to change again, or something like that. And I'm like, boy, Spartan, you have no idea how things are going to change again in 5 years after this special.
He has the worst AI built into him ever.
Yeah. But I mean, it was still nice. You had Brett Booth doing Backlash. You had Dan Abnett and Neil Gooch coming back and doing that really cool Majestic story where he goes to the diner, which I assume was during World's End, and he's reminiscing about a time when they all had a meeting there. And that one truly felt, like I said, it felt like a celebration of Wildstorm. And it also, now seeing the 30th one, it feels like that one, the 25th, was probably the last true time that we would have a celebration of Wildstorm, as compared to this one was more like, well, here's the ones from last time. Remember how good these were? Well, here's what we're going to go do going forward. And which I guess is okay, because, it goes with the theme, right? Things got to change, and I get it. But it just still felt weird, right? The Grifter story, for a while there, I thought it was going to feed into what happens in Wildcats #3. I actually went back and reread it, because I was like, something happens in Wildcats #3 that I was like, that sounds like set up from over there, but it was two different guys. We'll get into that later. And I was like, okay, so that was, I mean, it still feels like set up for the future, I guess, the Grifter story that they put in the 30th. But it was still, and then the whole thing with, so Jack Hawksworth was shown in some Swamp Thing issues last year. So he is established that he's in the DC universe, hasn't been interacting with the Authority as far as I know. And then, this was all to introduce a new character called City Boy, who seems to have very similar powers to Jack. So I didn't really see that as a passing of the torch per se. I hope that's not what it was. It almost felt more like Jack wanted to know, well, what's going on, and then this whole thing with the Justice League being gone. And I guess this is supposed to be an iteration of Stormwatch about to take it over. Like, only Winter's there again with the other DC characters. I will give them kudos for this, though. In this one, they did put everybody's name, because the director Bones. Okay, I don't know who that is. You gave me all this stuff about him. Perfect. I wish you would have done that in Wildcats #1. And they're having this interesting conversation. Oh, did you catch the joke, the meme joke of the Eminence of Blades? how he was introduced only to be killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who followed the New 52 Stormwatch, Minta Blade was in there, and it's an interesting character with a, outlandish name. And oh, was Flint in here? I was just kind of scrolling past. I think Flint came out too. Yeah, there she is. Yeah, Flint's in here. So, that's the only other classic Wildstorm character, classic Stormwatch character that's in there. The Deathglow one was interesting, but I don't really know how it fits with the Deathglow on Wildcats right now, because I don't know the way that one ends, like where it fits in the timeline. I mean, it's interesting. I feel like that was kind of what they did with the old Deathglow anyway. And then the Apollo and Midnighter, they get their one shot, and I could tell that I totally missed everything that's been going on with them in Dark Crisis. So I guess this is meant to have you go read all that to see because I know that they've been in the Superman title, helping out Superman after Superman and the Authority kind of was put together. So, and then the last thing with Zealot and her sword, it's interesting. I'm glad Zealot's there, but maybe again, it's just that feeling of this is truly I don't know if changing of the guard is the right word, but like they're kind of letting you know, like this, you guys wanted Wildstorm characters. We can't just put you back in the old Wildstorm universe. We're going to give you this. And those of you who want to be on board, come on. And if not, like, this is where we're going anyway. That's kind of how it felt. So, and Grifter got run over by a reindeer was, for me anyway, a lot more fun than it deserved to be. Like, it shouldn't have been as much fun as it was. And I think it's just like kind of turned my brain off before I read it. I was just like, it's obvious they just wrote it for fun, and I'm like, I can't fault them for that.
Right.
All kinds of specials back in the day, Halloween specials and whatnot in the Wildstorm universe. So at least it went full force with that one. And as you go watch the video that I animated, that one was a lot of fun to animate. So yeah, that's my 2.5 cents of that. So,
that was a good nickel.
Yeah. So would you like me to move on to Wildcats number 3?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. So Wildcats number 3. So we open up with we're kind of in the middle of action shot, and Fairchild's in her plastic costume. Yay! They heard our cries before we started. So, and then they give us a, well, this was earlier type of thing, and here, see, they did kind of what I asked. The other characters are narrating the names of the characters that are in the Seven Soldiers of Victory, and confusing choices, of course, like Threshold's here. So Threshold's here, and Fairchild's there, and she's little, and she doesn't recognize him. Like, what does that mean in this universe? Majestic. They talk about Majestic being a boy. So essentially they make him sound like Shazam. So I was like, why? Like, I don't understand. He's supposed to be a Caribbean High Lord. You've already established Caribbean exists, like the whole war and everything exists. Why would you change that? I used to Google to learn how to say this name. It's Andromache. I vaguely remember her from the old Wildstorm universe. Do you remember her? Apparently some of the other people at the boards do. Though I still say the boards. At the Facebook group do. We got Maul to join. Other one, yeah, like you said, that's weird because it's like, okay, if she's here, then where's Wetworks? I know there's been some appearances of them, but I don't think it was them. It was like, I don't know. Go look at our checklist and figure it out. And then Pike, who, in my opinion, could be without the cape and without the little top part of his head. It's just a nitpick, I know. But
they wanted to give him more flair.
yeah, I guess. and of course they get into a fight, and they do this juxtaposition of the Wildcats going on a mission while Grifter's going after this rich person who's apparently in league with the Court of Owls. And that's what I was saying. That was what I went back to the Wildstorm 30th, because I was like, well, he helped that guy on the train. So is this the same guy, but it's a different name? So that means the Wildstorm 30th was just simply to set up his conflict with Talia al Ghul. She came out at the end. And basically after getting semi-fired from the Wildcats, they teleport him back into the battle to help. Apparently the Wildcats are sent to go recover a package, which turns out to be a young boy, we assume is going to be superpowered. Fairchild performs a fastball special using Grifter, so I thought that was kind of cool. So, like if Wolverine and Colossus aren't around to do it, why not? But yeah, it just kind of ends in the middle of an action scene where they're all trying to teleport away from an exploding helicopter, except for Grifter for whatever reason. The teleporter's not working just in time to have a cliffhanger. So that one I actually thought was much better. That was the one that I was like, kind of feel like the first two issues, if they were all like number 3, we'd probably feel a little bit better about things. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, beginnings of series are always challenging, and we've seen these characters and this title rebooted so many times that you wonder how many times it can get rung through the wash and it come out sparkly. So yeah, I'm looking more forward to 4, 5, and 6 than I am 1, 2, and 3. Like, it was exciting to get the new release out, but I knew that 2 and 3 were going to be a little challenging, and they're really just starting to get the ball rolling, because we don't even know where they're heading with this, with all these new character introductions. And again, it's challenging knowing that it's going to be a limited series and not knowing how long it's going to be, that, how much introduction can they really put together on it before they get into the meat of the story. And we don't even know how many arcs we're going to get out of this. It could be 1 for all we know. The nice thing about the last series that came out, we knew it was 12 issues, and we knew it was probably only going to be 1 or 2 solid arcs through that run. So yeah, I mean, 3 definitely started getting the momentum going. So I'm really looking forward to the next ones much more than these ones, for sure.
Somebody brought up to me that on the cover of issue 3, they actually dropped the limited series already. It just shows Grifter's mask where it would normally say limited series. So, but I think somebody on the group said that it's probably going to be, what, does yours say it?
No, they dropped it, but I still feel it.
Yeah, well, somebody was saying that they think that it's going to be 12. They're leaving that room, I guess, like if the sales are so bad, they're just going to be like, nope, never mind, we're not going to 12.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up at 6, which...
Yeah. Hey, 6, well, you're about to talk about it here, but at least it didn't have the final issue tag, so that's something.
There you go. Yeah, I guess I can move into that. So coming soon, we'll have Wildcats number 4. It's planning to release February 15th, and it's written by Matthew Rosenberg with art and cover by Steven Segovia. Variants by David Pulaski and Dan Hipp. So, with issue number 3, that's the last one that has 4 covers. Thank goodness. They've been doing this 1 in 25 and 1 in 50. So once we get into issues 4, 5, and 6, they finally go to 3 covers. So a standard news stand edition, 1 cardstock variant, and then 1 in 25, which seemed to be like, I guess some of the Dan Hipp ones, they're doing like a poster kind of puzzle thing going on. So I don't know how many go through that. I think maybe just 4. But after that, Wildcats number 5 in March. So March 14th, Also written by Matthew Rosenberg with art and cover by Steven Segovia, variant by Dan Hipp, and Chuma Hill is the 1 in 25. And then finally, we have the delayed series of Waller versus Wildstorm, which is under the DC's Black Label series. And number 1 for that goes on sale March 21st. And it also has a cardstock variant, but it is written by Spencer Ackerman and Evan Narcine, with art by Jesus Marino, which we're very familiar with, and Eric Battle. Covers by Jorge Fornes, Eric Battle, and Mike Perkins is the 1 in 25. And then finally in April, we have WildC.A.T.s number 6. Goes on sale April 11th. And it has also written by Matthew Rosenberg and art and cover by Steven Segovia. And it has a variant cover by Matthew Surdy, and Dan Hipp is the 1 in 25. So they're down to 3 variants, or 2 variants on top of the standard for WildC.A.T.s. So that helps me in my budget, even though I'm mediocre on what's going on so far.
Yeah. Well, apparently variant covers are big business now, is what I've learned. So they're almost mandated now. But yeah, that's essentially what we thought of these opening issues. Like I said, most people are pretty split on it. Can't fault, like when people come on and say the things they don't like about it, I can't fault them for it because it's not what they wanted. And others are, like you said, giving it a chance and just kind of seeing it to the end. And that's why we exist here, because we're going to be there. We're always there to the bitter end. You guys have seen that every time. So
sad but true.
If you don't want to participate in the bitter end, but you want to see it, if you want to see us on the train wreck as the train goes off the tracks, we will wave to you. So
I am cautiously optimistic that when we return as a follow-up to review 4, 5, and 6 and the first issue of Waller versus Wildstorm somewhere at the end of April, that hopefully this frown will get flipped upside down a little bit more.
Hopefully so. But for those of you who are out there and like still collecting the old stuff, the classic stuff, and feeling nostalgic, we do have a friend of the show, Christopher Crowther, has his new site, worldofwildstorm.com. So he is cataloging everything, like all the issues, all the collectibles. I mean, the man is amazing stuff he can find. He's like, and thankfully he shares it. So yeah, check out that site if you're looking. I mean, the checklist we have obviously has just to let you know what's out there. It doesn't have, ours doesn't have like variants and whatnot. So if you really want to get into looking for variants and stuff like that, his site is definitely it for that. I should have gone to look, but I know you have the note here for the Wildstorm Oral History book. If there's still copies out there and you're a Wildstorm fan, go get them. I know Joseph Hedges did very well with that book. I have my copy come back on Kickstarter. So if he has any, hopefully he'll do a new version for maybe the 35th anniversary. We'll see. I know he said he had thought about doing a re-release for the 30th, but it just didn't happen. No listener mail, because I feel like most people are starting to comment either at our YouTube or whenever I post on social media. People have been commenting. So thank you to all of you who do comment, especially on the videos. I try to answer everybody, unless it's a super negative comment that I may ignore you just because I'm not going to engage that. But I think everybody, even when people have said, they don't like this current WildC.A.T.s, I just leave it alone. I mean, I'm not going to convince you otherwise. The proof is in the pudding for you. So I honestly don't know. I know you have go ahead.
I was just saying, we do get an occasional drive-by comment, and thanks for the checklist that you put together on our website, wildstormaddiction.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was definitely a labor of love to put that together. That's why I feel for Christopher Crowther, who's trying to put together everything. So, like, good luck, but he's doing very well at that. So, I was just gonna. I know you're about to move in here. I honestly don't know what is the state of Comixology anymore. I know it's been integrated into Amazon, so uh, but yeah, that's still where you can get your digital stuff. I've never tried getting it directly from DC's website, so
Yeah. Maybe we should update our notes.
yeah.
I did go and look at the Comic-Con because they used to track all the sales, month-to-month sales. And because DC moved to Lunar Publishing, there are no sales being tracked that I can find. Maybe there's something out there that somebody knows about and wants to contact us, but it's a Pandora's box. Like, we don't know how well these WildC.A.T.s issues did, which is kind of a shame. Like, I used to love going to Comic-Con and being like, yeah, we hit the top 100. And then,
apparently it's not an anomaly. I saw a report that it's a thing right now. For some reason, they've just stopped reporting sales, so it's not a good sign for comics across the board. But we are going to have links to Clark's Bar, which is still alive and well on Facebook, currently 79 members. And then we have Wildstorm Universe group, which I mentioned a couple of times. If you're a Wildstorm fan, you're not part of that group, you're missing out. There's lots of great fans in there. There's people who will argue with you about things, but be civil. If not, the moderator Brian Hartless is really good at kicking people out if they misbehave. There's also some creators on there. Jeff Marriott is on there. I know a lot of the different artists are on there. Some of them, Jeff Marriott especially, will answer your questions. So yeah, it's a good time to be a fan because you can actually talk to your creators. So I know one of the coolest comments, just real quick, that I got when I started the videos was Mike Eisner, who did Union. When I've only got a chance to do issue 1 of Union, and he was like, wow, he really liked the animation. He's like, I wish we had that back in the 90s. I was like, I wish I had it back in the 90s so I could give it to you and be part of all this. So.
Yeah, your YouTube channel, everything that you've been doing on there, the classic stuff and the current stuff are top notch, man. Thanks for putting all the time and effort into it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it's definitely fun. Like I said, the only one that was painful to do was that Midnighter backup in the Action Comics. So other than that, everything else has been fun. So I appreciate it. But other than that, like I said, we're still on all the social medias. I'll have to add our Instagram on here, but you can find me at twitter.com/WildstormFanJoe. You can find the comic podcast at twitter.com/WildstormAddict. And then you can email us at wildstormaddiction@gmail.com. And other than that, yeah, we'll keep our eyes peeled, and hopefully, my main thing is let's see if we can make it to the next recording without getting a final issue tag. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, thanks for listening and watching.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, everybody. If you haven't picked up these issues, please go get them.
Hello everyone, I know I don't do a lot of shorts here on the channel, but I thought this one was definitely worthy of jumping on here and doing one. So if you haven't heard yet, James Gunn and Peter Safran have released their DC slate for movies, and guess what? We are getting a movie for the Authority. I cannot believe it. I know he name dropped Wildstorm not too long ago in one of his tweets. I just figured it was because he was talking about the whole DC catalog now, especially in this first, well, they're calling them chapters, I guess, instead of phases like Marvel. Never did I think that a Wildstorm property would be one of the ones in there. So super happy about this. Obviously, hoping that this is successful so other Wildstorm properties will be brought to the forefront. I know it's going to be a combination of TV projects and movie projects, and they're all going to be intertwined. So obviously there's plenty of Wildstorm properties that would make good movies or TV shows. So really excited about this. Tell me, what do you guys think about this news?